Welcome, chosen ones. Sometimes the brightest flames are forged in the hottest fires. If you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, wondering why you were born into chaos, conflict, or dysfunction, know this: it's not a mistake, it's part of your purpose. Chosen ones are born into toxic families not to suffer endlessly, but to rise above the patterns, break the cycles, and transform the darkness into light. Your environment may have been painful, but it was also your greatest teacher. It sharpened your instincts, strengthened your spirit, and awakened the deep wisdom inside you. Toxic families don't just tear people apart, they reveal who you really are when everything else falls away. They force you to grow, to heal, and to become the person you were meant to be. This isn't about staying stuck in pain, it's about reclaiming your power. You were chosen for a reason, and your experiences are the tools you need to build something extraordinary. Watch the video to discover why your journey, though challenging, is the ultimate gift, and how it's preparing you for greatness. Number 1. Toxic families are the perfect pressure cookers for authenticity. Living in a toxic family is like being thrust into a storm you never asked for. The chaos, the manipulation, and the emotional turbulence can feel overwhelming, even suffocating. But for chosen ones, this environment becomes the very forge that shapes their authenticity. When surrounded by dysfunction, pretending to fit in feels unbearable. You're constantly confronted with lies, hypocrisy, and surface-level interactions that demand you either conform or rebel. And for chosen ones, conformity is simply not an option. Toxic families push you to reject the masks that others wear to survive. They force you to question everything, your beliefs, your values, and even your identity. The dysfunction around you is so loud and persistent that it strips away societal conditioning. You see the cracks in the facade of normality, the hollow rituals, and the empty words. This clarity may be painful, but it also creates space for something profound to emerge: your real self. In toxic environments, survival often depends on reading the room, navigating tension, and sensing unspoken truths. This sharpens your instincts and teaches you how to trust your inner voice. You begin to prioritize what's real over what's expected. Authenticity isn't just a choice, it becomes your lifeline. You learn to value truth over comfort and depth over appearances. What's extraordinary is that this process often happens before you even realize it. The dysfunction you endure forces you to develop a kind of emotional X-ray vision. You see through the illusions people cling to, and in rejecting those illusions, you find your power. In a world that thrives on facades, your authenticity becomes a rare and valuable strength. It's the gift toxic families unintentionally give, the freedom to be undeniably, unapologetically real. Number 2. It sharpens emotional X-ray vision. Growing up in a toxic family means navigating a world where words often don't match actions, where smiles can hide intentions, and where love can feel conditional or weaponized. For chosen ones, this constant exposure to manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional chaos isn't just painful, it's transformative. It forces them to develop an almost supernatural ability to sense the truth behind the facade. When you're surrounded by subtle digs, half-truths, or outright denial of your reality, you learn quickly that what people say isn't always what they mean. You begin to notice the slight hesitation in someone's voice, the shift in their tone, or the way their energy changes before they even speak. You see the tension in their body language, hear the unspoken words in their silences, and feel the emotions they try to suppress. This heightened awareness becomes your emotional X-ray vision. The ability to detect lies and hidden motives doesn't come easily. It's honed through years of survival. You've had to anticipate mood swings, predict the next argument, and brace yourself for unexpected chaos. This relentless pattern teaches you to observe deeply, to listen not just to words, but to intention. Over time, your intuition sharpens into a tool that cuts through pretense like a blade. What's remarkable is how this gift extends far beyond your toxic environment. It becomes a skill you carry into every relationship, every interaction, and every decision. While others are fooled by appearances, you see through the masks people wear. This isn't paranoia, it's clarity. You've learned to trust what your gut tells you because in a world of noise, it has always been your truest guide. What once felt like a curse is now your superpower, giving you the edge to navigate life with an unshakable sense of truth. Number 2. The pain is a masterclass in boundary setting. Pain in a toxic family doesn't just leave scars, it teaches lessons no classroom ever could. When you're constantly subjected to manipulation, overstepped boundaries, and emotional intrusion, you reach a breaking point where survival demands change. For chosen ones, that change is the realization that boundaries aren't just a preference, they're an essential lifeline. Growing up in a toxic environment often means your needs are dismissed, your feelings invalidated, and your space repeatedly invaded. You're conditioned to think that saying no is selfish or disrespectful. But over time, the emotional exhaustion becomes unbearable, and you begin to understand that allowing everyone access to your energy is what's truly unsustainable. This pain becomes the turning point where you start setting limits, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The process isn't easy. At first, setting boundaries feels like walking into a battle you didn't sign up for. Toxic family members will test you, guilt trip you, or outright reject your efforts. But every time you hold your ground, you reclaim a piece of your power. You start to see that boundaries don't just protect you, they define who you are. They say, "This is what I value. This is what I will not tolerate." This skill becomes a superpower as you navigate life. You recognize unhealthy dynamics before they take root. You learn to say no without apology, and to walk away from situations that drain you. More importantly, you attract relationships that respect your limits because you've learned to enforce them with clarity and confidence. In a world where many struggle with people-pleasing or overextending themselves, your mastery of boundaries is rare and invaluable. What once felt like painful lessons in survival is now the foundation for a life rooted in self-respect, balance, and freedom. Number 3. They inherit the generational blueprint they were meant to destroy. Being born into a toxic family is no coincidence. Chosen ones inherit the weight of generational cycles, patterns of trauma, dysfunction, and pain that have been passed down like an unspoken legacy. It's not an easy inheritance. You carry the echoes of wounds that aren't even yours, yet somehow you're uniquely equipped to confront them. These cycles thrive in silence, denial, and repetition. They're the unchallenged behaviors, the unspoken rules, and the unresolved pain that ripple through families for generations. But chosen ones are different. They don't just accept these patterns as inevitable. Instead, they question them, challenge them, and ultimately disrupt them. This isn't an act of rebellion, it's an act of healing. Confronting generational trauma feels overwhelming at first. You may find yourself replaying the very patterns you despise, wondering if you'll ever escape them. But this struggle is part of your mission. As you face the pain head-on, acknowledging it, naming it, and refusing to perpetuate it, you begin to rewrite the story. Each boundary you set, each toxic behavior you refuse to tolerate, and each choice to heal becomes a step toward breaking the chain. This work doesn't just change your life, it ripples outward. It heals the past by acknowledging it and paves the way for a healthier future for those who come after you. It's not about blaming your family, but about transforming what was broken into something whole. Chosen ones are architects of generational healing. By stepping into this role, you turn inherited pain into purpose. You prove that the story doesn't end in dysfunction, it evolves into resilience, freedom, and love. You weren't just born into these patterns, you were born to destroy them, leaving a legacy of healing in their place. Number 4. It's a crash course in self-reliance. Growing up in a toxic family means living without the emotional safety net that others take for granted. For chosen ones, there's no reliable source of support, no space where they feel fully seen or protected. Instead, they're left to navigate emotional chaos on their own, often at a young age. But this lack of a safety net doesn't just leave scars, it builds strength. It forces chosen ones to become their own anchors in a storm that would otherwise drown them. Without someone to lean on, you learn to lean on yourself. You become your own source of validation, your own encourager, and your own protector. At first, it's a lonely and grueling process. You question your worth, stumble through trial and error, and face moments of despair. But as you continue, something remarkable happens. You realize that your survival doesn't depend on others, it depends on you. This self-reliance doesn't just prepare you for survival, it lays the foundation for unshakable resilience. You learn to solve problems creatively, make decisions with confidence, and weather storms that would break others. While many seek external validation or collapse under pressure, you've already developed an inner strength that no one can take away. The independence forged through this process doesn't isolate you, it empowers you. It allows you to engage with the world from a place of strength rather than dependency. You don't need others to complete you. You choose relationships that add to the life you've built for yourself. Toxic families may deny chosen ones the comfort of an emotional safety net, but in doing so, they unknowingly give them something far greater, the ability to stand strong, unshaken, and self-assured, no matter what life throws their way. Number 5. Adversity burns away the ego. Adversity within a toxic family has a way of stripping everything down to the core. For chosen ones, the constant rejection, criticism, and invalidation become relentless forces that chip away at the ego. At first, this feels crushing. Your sense of worth, pride, and even identity can feel like it's being dismantled piece by piece. But what's really happening is something far deeper and more transformative: the shedding of everything false. Ego thrives on external validation, on being accepted, praised, or acknowledged. In a toxic family, those things are rare if they come at all. You're left in a constant state of questioning. Why am I not good enough? Why do I feel unseen? Why do I have to fight for even the smallest scraps of approval? These questions, painful as they are, force you to dig deeper. You begin to see that the approval you've been chasing isn't the answer. The facade you've been maintaining isn't who you truly are. This process is brutal, but it's also liberating. When the ego is burned away, what's left is your pure essence, who you are without the need for validation or external recognition. You stop seeking worth in others' eyes and start aligning with your true purpose. The criticism and invalidation lose their sting because you realize they don't define you. What defines you is the strength, clarity, and unwavering authenticity that remain after the ego is stripped away. Adversity doesn't destroy chosen ones, it refines them. It removes the noise, the false identities, and the distractions, leaving behind a person who is deeply connected to their inner truth. In a world obsessed with appearances and approval, this alignment with pure essence is not just rare, it's revolutionary. Number 6. They become warriors of compassion. Growing up surrounded by brokenness shapes chosen ones in a way few can understand. Toxic families are often filled with wounded people acting out their pain, whether through anger, manipulation, or neglect. As a chosen one, you quickly learn to see beyond these behaviors. You begin to recognize that behind the harsh words, controlling tendencies, or distant silences lies something deeper: unresolved hurt. This insight doesn't come easily. At first, the pain inflicted by others feels personal. You may internalize it, wondering what you did wrong or why you weren't enough. But over time, as you observe patterns and begin to heal yourself, a new perspective emerges. You start to realize that the people who hurt you were often hurt themselves. They were acting from their own unhealed wounds, not from a place of malice toward you. This understanding doesn't excuse toxic behavior, but it changes how you respond to it. Instead of reacting with anger or resentment, you develop compassion, a deep, unshakable empathy that allows you to see people as they truly are: flawed, hurting, and human. This compassion doesn't make you weak, it makes you powerful. It becomes your most disarming weapon because it allows you to navigate even the most challenging interactions with grace and clarity. As a chosen one, this warrior-like compassion becomes a defining trait. It enables you to hold space for others' pain without losing yourself. You can offer understanding without condoning harm. In a world that often reacts with judgment and hostility, your ability to approach situations with empathy becomes transformative. It heals not just you, but also the people around you. The wounds you've endured turn into a gift, a profound ability to connect, inspire, and break cycles of pain through the strength of your compassion. Number 7. They develop a ruthless commitment to truth. Growing up in a toxic family means living in a world where lies, manipulation, and denial run rampant. Chosen ones are constantly surrounded by distorted truths and half-truths, which forces them to develop a fierce commitment to one thing, the truth. In an environment where authenticity is rare and deception is the norm, they become relentless truth seekers, unable to accept anything less than raw, unfiltered reality, whether it's about themselves, their family, or the world around them. The lies they're exposed to early on don't just shape their view of others, they shape their sense of self. They learn quickly that the truth is often buried beneath layers of deception, and so they become experts at peeling those layers back. What others may gloss over or ignore, they confront head-on. They refuse to settle for the illusions of perfection, the false narratives that others cling to in order to avoid the discomfort of facing reality. This relentless pursuit of truth becomes a powerful tool for personal growth. Chosen ones know that in order to heal, they must face the uncomfortable, the ugly, and the painful. They cannot grow if they continue to hide behind the lies they were fed. This commitment to truth doesn't make them rigid or harsh. It makes them deeply self-aware. They become masters at seeing things as they truly are, without the rose-colored lenses of denial. As they seek the truth within themselves, they also refuse to accept the illusions projected by others. Toxic family members may try to impose their own version of reality, but chosen ones are not swayed by this. They know the value of honesty, both with themselves and others, and they are willing to stand firm in the face of discomfort in order to preserve it. In a world that often values convenience over honesty, the chosen ones develop a ruthless commitment to truth that becomes their greatest strength. It sets them free from the lies they were raised with and empowers them to create lives built on authenticity and integrity. Number 8. It's a sacred initiation. Being born into a toxic family is often seen as a cruel twist of fate, but for chosen ones it's not a curse. It's a sacred initiation. It's a soul-level contract made before birth, an agreement to step into the chaos and transform it. While the pain, dysfunction, and emotional turmoil may feel overwhelming, this hardship is not random. It is the very path that leads to personal and spiritual growth. This initiation is not for the faint of heart. It requires resilience, courage, and a willingness to face darkness head-on. But it also carries with it a deep spiritual purpose. The chosen ones are not here to simply survive. They are here to transmute the darkness around them into something beautiful, to turn chaos into clarity, and to bring light where there was once only shadow. They are the ones chosen to break the cycles, heal the wounds, and guide others out of the very dysfunction that once threatened to define them. Every painful moment, every hardship endured is part of this initiation. It's not about escaping the toxicity, but about finding the strength to rise above it. It's about seeing the lessons in the pain, the opportunity for growth in the struggle. The family's dysfunction is not the end of their story. It's the crucible in which their true power is forged. This sacred initiation isn't just about survival, it's about transformation. The chosen ones are here to prove that light can emerge from even the darkest places, that purpose can arise from chaos, and that their true essence is indestructible. What they face in the toxicity of their families isn't the end of their journey. It's the beginning of something far more powerful, an awakening to their true calling, their divine purpose, and their role in healing not just themselves, but the world around them. Number 9. They master the art of emotional survival. Constant turmoil in a toxic family is like living in a perpetual storm, relentless, unpredictable, and intense. But for chosen ones, surviving this chaos isn't just about enduring, it's about mastering the art of emotional survival. Over time, they develop an almost instinctual ability to navigate through the most difficult situations, learning how to stay grounded when everything around them is falling apart. Each emotional upheaval, each chaotic outburst, each manipulation or attack serves as a lesson in how to hold their ground. It forces them to refine their emotional intelligence, becoming attuned to their own responses and learning how to manage their inner world when external forces are trying to destabilize them. In the midst of emotional storms, they learn how to find calm. They can't control the chaos around them, but they can control how they respond to it. This skill is forged through constant practice. They've learned to stay composed in situations where others might crumble. Whether it's handling intense family arguments, navigating manipulative behavior, or processing personal trauma, chosen ones become experts at maintaining their emotional equilibrium. What once felt like an overwhelming burden becomes a unique strength. They can weather any storm because they've faced the fiercest ones and survived. In time, this emotional resilience extends beyond their family dynamics. Life's inevitable challenges, whether in relationships, career, or personal struggles, no longer feel as overwhelming. They've already learned how to stay centered amid chaos. They've trained themselves to see the bigger picture, to remain focused on what matters, and to rise above the emotional turbulence that others may get lost in. What toxic families tried to break in them becomes the foundation of their strength. They are no longer victims of emotional chaos. They are masters of it, unshakable in the face of life's storms. Number 10. Toxic families are mirrors for hidden strengths. Toxic families are like mirrors that reflect back a distorted image of who you are, one that's shaped by the bitterness, insecurities, and projections of others. They criticize, attack, and attempt to break you down, but in doing so, they often reveal your deepest strengths. What's attacked, ridiculed, or undermined is often the very quality that makes you unique and powerful. The traits they point to with disdain are the gifts you carry, the aspects of yourself that threaten their comfort or expose their flaws. For chosen ones, these attacks become revealing. They may be called too sensitive, too independent, too outspoken, or too different, labels designed to make them feel wrong for being who they are. Yet what's criticized is exactly what they need to embrace to step into their full potential. Sensitivity, often seen as a weakness, can be a superpower of empathy and intuition. Independence, scorned by those who thrive on control, becomes the source of their inner strength and resilience. The outspoken nature that others try to silence? It's a voice that will one day lead, inspire, and challenge the status quo. Each projection, each attempt to put them in a box, only highlights the uniqueness they carry within. They are not broken, they are misunderstood. The more toxic family members attack or dismiss them, the clearer it becomes that the very qualities they wish to suppress are the ones that will carry them to greatness. These criticisms, when reframed, show the chosen ones the hidden treasures within themselves, the resilience, the creativity, the authenticity that will ultimately become their power. Toxic families may try to break them, but in truth, they are only unveiling the strength that lies beneath the surface. The more they're pushed down, the higher they rise. What was once a source of pain becomes the very foundation of their greatest gifts. Number 11. It forces them to question everything. Growing up in a dysfunctional environment is a constant reminder that things aren't always what they seem. For chosen ones, this instability pushes them into a state of questioning everything. The lies, contradictions, and unhealthy patterns they witness daily become impossible to ignore. They see that the norms, traditions, and beliefs upheld by society, things most people accept without question, are often built on shaky foundations or outright falsehoods. In this space of confusion and disillusionment, chosen ones are forced to dig deeper. The constant dysfunction in their families acts like a mirror, reflecting how deeply flawed the systems around them really are. The idea of normal that society pushes, whether it's the conventional career path, the prescribed way of living, or the expectations placed on relationships, suddenly feels suffocating and irrelevant. Why should they follow rules that have clearly failed the people they love? Why should they trust systems that have kept them in pain? This constant exposure to dysfunction sparks a fire in them to reject the status quo and carve out their own path. This questioning doesn't stop with their family dynamics, it spreads outward, compelling them to interrogate everything they've been told about success, love, spirituality, and happiness. The traditions they were born into, whether cultural, religious, or familial, are no longer accepted as gospel truths. Instead, they see them as guidelines that can be rewritten. The realization that they don't have to conform to a predetermined script becomes a radical act of independence. In this process, chosen ones create their own beliefs, their own standards, and their own way of living. They no longer bend to the expectations of others. They become pioneers of their own lives, choosing authenticity over conformity, growth over stagnation, and truth over convenience. What was meant to break them pushes them into a level of self-awareness and independence that's nothing short of revolutionary. Numbers 12. They learn the art of energy alchemy. Living in a toxic environment teaches you one of the most powerful yet often overlooked skills, the ability to transform negative energy into something meaningful. For chosen ones, toxicity isn't just a burden. It becomes a raw material for something greater. Constant exposure to emotional chaos, negativity, and manipulation forces them to learn how to transmute that energy, transforming it from poison into something that fuels their growth, success, and creative drive. When you're surrounded by criticism, emotional drains, and constant upheaval, you can either let that energy consume you, or you can learn how to shift it. Chosen ones, through trial and error, find ways to take the anger, frustration, or sadness that toxic family dynamics provoke, and instead of allowing it to defeat them, they channel it. They turn emotional poison into gold. This process isn't instantaneous. It's a slow and deliberate practice. You learn to recognize when toxic energy is being directed at you, and instead of absorbing it, you begin to transmute it. Whether it's using the anger to fuel a creative project, turning hurt into empathy that helps others, or using rejection as motivation to achieve what you once thought was impossible, you develop an incredible ability to alchemize your emotional reactions. Over time, this becomes second nature. You no longer fear negativity or criticism. Instead, you see it as an opportunity to grow. The toxic energy that once threatened to break you becomes the very fire that propels you toward success. It's a form of self-mastery, an ability to not just survive in a toxic environment, but to thrive in it. What was meant to hold you down becomes the force that drives you forward. Through this alchemy, chosen ones don't just rise above the toxicity, they create their own gold from it. Number 13. The toxicity triggers their awakening. Growing up in a toxic family often feels like being trapped in a relentless storm of dysfunction, constant chaos, emotional turbulence, and confusion. But while the pain and instability can feel overwhelming, it's also in this darkness that chosen ones find their awakening. The dysfunction becomes the trigger, pushing them to the very edge, forcing them to face rock bottom. At this lowest point, when everything seems to be falling apart, something extraordinary happens. They realize they have nothing left to lose and everything to discover. For chosen ones, this rock bottom is not the end. It's the beginning of something much greater. The weight of toxic patterns forces them to question everything they thought they knew about themselves, the world, and their purpose. The false beliefs, societal pressures, and family expectations crumble, leaving behind a raw, unfiltered reality. It's here, in the void left by shattered illusions, that they begin to hear the quiet whisper of their true self, the call to something bigger, deeper, and more meaningful than what they've been told to pursue. This awakening isn't gentle. It's messy, uncomfortable, and sometimes terrifying. It demands they let go of old identities, old habits, and old stories they've been told about who they are. But in doing so, they step into their power. They align with a purpose that is uniquely theirs, and the dysfunction that once seemed like a curse becomes the catalyst for their transformation. What once felt like the weight of the world crushing them now fuels their drive to rise. The darkness they've endured becomes the fuel for their spiritual journey. It lights the path toward a higher purpose, one that connects them to a greater sense of self, to others, and to the mission they were born to fulfill. The pain of toxicity is not just a hardship. It's the crucible that forges their true power and awakens them to the profound truth of who they are. Listen, chosen ones. As we wrap up, if you're reading this, chances are you've felt the weight of growing up in a toxic family. The pain, the manipulation, the constant emotional battles, they don't define you. They never have. In fact, these challenges have done something incredible. They've forged you into someone capable of greatness. Being born into a toxic environment isn't a punishment. It's the ultimate gift, one that few understand. You are a chosen one. Your struggles weren't random. They were your initiation into a life of purpose, resilience, and transformation. The toxicity you've endured has been your training ground, sharpening you in ways that others can't even begin to comprehend. It's forced you to question everything, to rise above, and to forge your own path. Every time you were pushed down, you learned how to rise higher. Every time you were dismissed, you found your voice. These wounds, they've become the very foundation of your power. They've given you the courage to confront the darkness, and in doing so, transform it into light. Now is the time to stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance. You were chosen for a reason, to break cycles, to heal, and to become a beacon for others who are lost in their own struggles. You have the power to turn your pain into purpose, to turn your chaos into creation. If you're ready to embrace your true calling, to stand tall in your authenticity, and to join others who are awakening to their own power, now is the moment to take the next step. You don't have to do it alone. Join a community of like-minded individuals who, just like you, are committed to healing, growth, and purpose. The world needs you, and your journey is only just beginning. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now and stay blessed.